Welcome to the Wellness Jocks radio and podcast show where pro athletes and wellness experts interact about wellness and weight loss. Our host, Russ Allen, and our guests bring expert insights and practical tips to help you live your optimal life. Their insights and inspiration to motivate and enhance your wellness journey. Whether you're looking to shed a few pounds, maintain your fitness, or revitalize your overall well-being, Wellness Jocks is here to guide you every step of the way. Now, the host of Wellness Jocks, Russ Allen.
Okay, hi, this is Russ Allen. Introduce yourself.
So my name's Jordan. I got into fitness and health coaching from wrestling. I come from I'm a short, bald Jewish guy. I come from a very short Jewish family. And my mom was very worried that my brother and I were going to get picked on in school. And so she walked into the living room one day. I was lying on the couch and I was 8 years old. And she said, "I'm going to put you two in wrestling." And the only wrestling that I knew at that time was WWE style wrestling. So I remember I looked up at her and I was like, "You want me to hit someone with a chair?" And she was like, "No, you idiot. It's Olympic style wrestling." And so basically I got very quickly, I fell in love with wrestling. I was terrible in school. I was in special education. I wasn't good at taking tests. I had ADHD. I was the black sheep in my family because everyone else was very good at school, like doctors, lawyers, professors. Everyone else was super smart. And I was the not smart one, but I was very athletic. And so I fell in love with wrestling. And by the time I got to high school, I made varsity as a freshman. I beat a junior out for the varsity spot. And I grew up just outside of Boston, Massachusetts, in a suburb of Boston. And when I made varsity as a freshman, I was 14, mainly go up against like 16, 17, 18-year-olds. And there's
big kids.
Big strength differential. Big strength differential. And so I was like, I need to figure out how I can get stronger because you have to lose weight when you're wrestling and cutting weight. So how do I lose weight while getting stronger? I ended up, I found a gym a couple towns over from me, a town called Newton, Massachusetts. There was a gym that I reached out to. I wrote a message. I said, "Hey, listen, I'll take the trash out. I'll clean the floor. I'll do anything you want me to do. Just like, let me come and learn from you and how to strength train." And I was very blessed because number one, they took me under their wing. They said yes. And number two is they were unbelievably science-based. It was a very high level science-based facility. And, from 14 years old, that's why I interned there and worked there. And, that's how I got involved with strength and conditioning and nutrition and performance. And I've been doing it since I was 14. It's the only job I've ever had.
You know, I was a high school wrestler.
Oh, nice.
And I unlike yourself, I didn't have a lot of athletic skills. So I also went for high school football, right? And I tell people I played the position left out. I was short, slow, and the whole deal. But I made Rudy look good. I was, that kind of kid.
Yeah.
But my vengeance was my older boy came home one night and he had played baseball and he said, "I went out for wrestling." And I had taught them when they were kids to wrestle. Yeah. Because, I knew something. And but he was so strong, even though he didn't know how to wrestle, he pinned every kid for the first year.
I love that.
It's a great sport. And there's nothing like, you're talking about accountability when you and him, and that's it. And there's really nothing between you and you're back to that mat, but your own effort.
You can't blame anyone else but yourself. It's no matter what, it's no other teammate, no coach. It's like, if you lose, you lose, and that's it. And then it's also, it teaches you to be humble, teaches you to be disciplined, accountable. It's
it's a team sport too. So you're rooting for the other guys.
Yes.
And even if you get beat, if the team wins, it's okay,
Yes.
But you got to show, you got to come out and make it. But I'm sorry, but a freshman wrestler being varsity, that is a big deal, folks. You don't know. That's hard to pull off.
I was very excited about it. And it was a tough intro into high school wrestling. By the time I got to junior, senior year, it was good, but freshman year, that was brutal.
Well, you got through it.
Yes.
So you must bring that kind of tenacity to your training of folks. And how do you work that?
Well, it's interesting. When I was younger and a wrestler, and then from wrestling, I transitioned to powerlifting, and I was an elite level powerlifter. Yeah. But my first client when I was by the time I was 16, they let me take on my first client at this gym. His name was Fred. He was 68 years old at the time. And his only goal was to be able to pick up his grandson without hurting his shoulders because he had rotator cuff issues. And there's a difference between liking working out and liking coaching. Two very different things. And a lot of personal trainers will get into personal training because they like working out, but they don't like coaching people, because when you're a person, when you like working out's easy. You enjoy it. It's fun going to the gym and exercising. It's not a hard thing for you. And for me, working out has never been a hard thing. I really like it. But I love coaching because I like trying to figure out the puzzle. I like trying to help people who don't like it and who don't necessarily understand how to fit it into their life, who might not have the same level of tenacity that I have. And so Fred, 68, rotator cuff issues. He just wants to pick up his grandson. And for me, that was when I was like, I want to coach people, because I really cared more about helping Fred achieve his goals than I did about achieving my goals. It was the first time, like at 14, I wanted to be an amazing wrestler and I wanted to look good naked. That's literally, it's all I cared about. And so for this guy, like, he doesn't tell me about wanting a 6-pack. He doesn't tell me about wanting to deadlift 500 pounds. He just wants to pick up his grandkid. At 14, that gives me a lot of perspective. And that's when I was like, I love coaching other people. And so when I was really young, I thought I wanted to work with professional athletes, and I was very fortunate and blessed. I worked with high-level baseball players from many different organizations in the MLB. I worked with many high-level wrestlers. I still work with some high-level jiu-jitsu grapplers. But the majority of the people I work with, 98% of them are everyday average Joes, average Janes, people who have to lose. I was literally just on the phone with a guy who's 467 pounds and he needs to lose a couple hundred pounds. I regularly, like, the majority of people I work with are people who are just everyday people who need to improve their life and their health and their fitness. And so I don't take the biggest loser approach of lose as much as possible, as quickly as possible, at any cost necessary, with berating people. The research is overwhelmingly clear that it does way more harm than good. When people lose weight like that, they're more likely to regain it and then more on the back end. So while I love going very hard and intense with my own training, with my clients, it's a much more I wouldn't call it a lenient or relaxed approach, but it's a much more sustainable approach.
You know, the thing about coaching is you have to have patience if you're going to be a really good coach. Yes. And you have to also have hope for the person that they could be something they're not.
Yes.
And if they feel their coach has lost hope in them, it's devastating.
That's it.
It's over. It's 100%. Really over. And no, it's a powerful thing, you know. When I was in college, I was going to go into physical therapy and ended up my junior year living with 2 other students, but they were both quadriplegic. And
oh, wow.
I did the cooking and the cleaning and the shopping. And then I did their workout with them.
Wow.
Because they were like, you know, and they're, you know, C4, he had very limited movement. The other young man, it was a 5'6", meaning the level of his brain. And he had quite a bit more movement, and very similar to you guy with, you know, wanting to be able to lift up his grandson, right? They had very limited goals. I want to be able to open the door. I want to be able to take a leak. I want to be able to fry an egg. I want to be able to do whatever for me. I want to do it for me. So working with people with severe disabilities, you really have to exercise patience, and you have to have hope.
Yes.
And that's really powerful that you bring that to what you're doing. I think that's great.
You know, there's a term, if we get into the research, it's called self-efficacy. And self-efficacy, it's really, the guy who's done the most research on it is a man named Albert Bandura. And without question, it is the greatest predictor of success in achieving a task. Like if someone is going to achieve something, the number one thing you want to look at is their level of self-efficacy. And it's very similar to their self-confidence. It's not exactly the same thing, but it's their level of belief in their ability to accomplish that specific task. And there are many ways to improve it, and there are different ways to measure it. But what it really boils down to is this: if you believe that you will be able to do something,
Yes.
then the likelihood that you will actually do that thing is almost certain that you will, if, as long as you believe it. If
Yeah.
you don't believe it, it's not going to happen. Because why would you bother trying? Why would you bother? Because if we're talking about weight loss, for example, weight loss isn't linear. Weight loss, like there are going to be road bumps. There's going to be plateaus. There's going to be difficulties. There are going to be challenging times of year. I mean, notoriously, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's is a difficult time of year. There are so many reasons or situations in which it's going to be difficult. And if you don't believe you're going to be able to do it anyway, then why would you bother spending the time, effort, and energy to do it if you don't think it's going to happen to begin with? And so when I used to do this a lot, now I have a better gauge on measuring self-efficacy without having to dive in deep, but I would actually take the time to run quizzes on potential clients, see where their self-efficacy was. And what I did, I created a Likert scale, 1 to 10 scale, basically, and to routinely ask clients where their self-efficacy was. And I wouldn't say, where's your self-efficacy? I would ask them generally on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being you're going to fail, 10 being 100% you're going to succeed. Where do you fall on that? And I found, without question, those who scored a 7 or above were going to achieve their goal without question. Those who consistently were 6 or below, they were likely not going to achieve their goal. And so my goal as a coach was get people to a 7. If I have a client who's at a 7, 8, 9, or 10, that individual client doesn't need rah motivation. They don't need it. They often are like, I'm good. Just tell me what to do and I'll do it. The people who are 1 to 6, they need the accountability. They need you there, and they need you to believe in them, because that they're going to feed off of that. Right. And so it's very interesting that you bring up the coach's belief in them, because for the people who need it most, it's incredibly important, and it's a major factor of whether or not they believe in themselves.
Right. Well, when you're taking somebody, obviously an elite athlete, getting your ass chewed or whatever is a whole different story than, someone who's 400 pounds.
Correct.
Because the social stigma of that obesity and the physical toll that it takes,
yes,
and is so significant.
Yes.
So to your point, the coach has got to be part shrink, part inspirator, part puzzle worker outer,
Correct.
you got to fix all those barriers to that individual. Oh, they've got to fix it, but you've got to help them see the road anyway.
Yes.
And that's, I'm fascinated. There's so many different approaches coaches take. This is very, very, what's your typical client? I mean, is it anybody, man, woman, any age, or is there,
it's anybody. I have people. So I don't take anyone younger than 18, just legal reasons. But 18 all the way into their 90s, men and women. Yeah. I work with everyone. And I've worked with, again, very high level athletes all the way to, I've never worked with a quadriplegic or even a paraplegic, but I have worked with many different health issues, whether it was ranging from diabetes to PCOS to like many different health issues. But yeah, it's my personal favorite people to work with are the average everyday individual, usually parents or grandparents. Those are my favorites.
Really?
Usually because I think a lot of coaches who don't actually like coaching, they just want to work with people who are going to do it no matter what. They want, like, I'm going to give you the program and you do it. And they don't want to motivate you. And for me, I love motivating people. Like, it's one of my favorite things to do. And the way I think about it is, part of a job of a great coach is to motivate people. And I always think about it from, like, I was terrible in school. I had very bad relationship with school because many of my teachers gave up on me. I remember the full names of every teacher who went above and beyond to help me. Nathaniel Armistead. I remember every teacher. Nathaniel Armistead was my junior year history professor, and he's one of the reasons that I became such a good writer. the thing that stands out for me is you will remember a teacher from high school. But everyone listening can remember at least one teacher, high school, college, who stands out as the teacher or one of the teachers that made a big difference on them. And I guarantee it was because that teacher went above and beyond to do things that aren't in the job description.
Mm-hmm.
That teacher came in early, stayed late. They helped them do extra things. They could have said, no, I'm not going to do this. This isn't like on my paid hours, but they did it anyway.
Yeah.
That's how I view coaching, where it's like, yeah, I could just give them a program, and if they don't do it, I could blame it on them. But what if I went the extra mile and actually helped them? And then they're telling their kids and their grandkids that I was the coach that helped them achieve that goal. Like that's why I do it. And so that for me is really what it boils down to. Is motivation and accountability is a major part of this. And so I've found that also people with kids and grandkids, they have a stronger why.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's when you're working with, young 20s, early 30s, no kids, like it's a very unique population. And some people love working with that population. When you're working with people who have kids and grandkids, there's a why that you can't understand until you have it. You just can't. It's when I had my first daughter, I the way that I describe having my first daughter is I experienced emotions that I never knew existed. It's sort of like I've never done like mushrooms or these drugs. I have nothing against it, but I've never done it. But I know some people who do it, they say they felt like they saw colors that they didn't know existed before when they took these like hallucinogenic drugs. That's what it's like when I had my first daughter, when it was like, I'm experiencing love in a way that I've never experienced it before. I'm literally experiencing an emotion I've never felt before. And it gives you a new sense of purpose and a new why that I love that with my clients. That's the type of person who gives me the most fulfillment. And when all of a sudden they can say they can put their child in their crib without their back hurting, or they can play with their kids or play with their grandkids, or they were able to go on vacation and without taking rest because their knees were hurting. Like those are the things that on one hand, the kid is loving every minute of it. They're not even aware of that stuff, but they're just going to have these amazing memories. And then the parent or the grandparent is overjoyed because they were able to do the entire thing without feeling like they were holding people back or without like they weren't able to contribute what they wish they could have. So that's my favorite population to work with.
I because of the NFL alumni, I got the opportunity to coach Dick Butkus.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
At 79 years old, Dick was one of these guys. His motivation level was 11. All you had to do is just lay it out for him and get away. The guy was driven. At 79, he was still the same guy.
I love that.
Used to just bury people into the ground. He was still just caustic and funny and just a complete personality. It was such an honor to get to know Dick and his family and see him in action.
Yeah.
And he was a huge supporter of what we're doing. I actually had the chance to interview him on the last day of his life. And,
wow.
And it was so, what a terrific person. And, he had a family and he had grandkids.
Yep.
And all he could talk about off camera was the grandkids and how many, and his son, Matt, worked directly with him, running the foundation with him, and still to this day is part of the foundation. And it's a big deal. They say with cancer patients, the minute they lose hope, it's over.
It's gone.
It's
correct.
Gone. And so it's really no different. If someone it was interesting living with these young men, and we had a whole community. This was Berkeley in the early 70s, right? UC Berkeley, right? Telegraph Avenue, the whole deal. We Jerry Garcia played down the street every night on University Avenue. It was awesome. That kind of a wild place. Anyway, so there was a whole community, and this was right when disabled people were mainstreaming, and they had the same wants and desires as anybody else. Nothing changed. It was, they wanted a girl, they wanted a life, they wanted a job, they wanted a career, they wanted a family. It didn't matter. And that's really what got them up in the morning.
Yes.
Was living to try their best to realize that. So it's very moving. You tap into the fundamental emotions and motivations of people, and then you get a whole different part of their wheel turning.
Yes.
Because they've got to hear that, and that is the unpacking of the puzzle that you do. That's great.
Yes, that's exactly right. That's exactly right.
It's funny. Yeah, that's good. Well, one of the things we do with Tackle Obesity is we put together shorts that we push out over social media.
Okay.
And I would love to have you as part of, capture some of those, little call outs. So give it some thought because, again, we have very famous people say, look, tackle obesity. Obesity is a medical condition, not a character flaw. You can do it, or whatever. That's the kind of thing that really people need to hear. And we want to support your career by pushing it out through our social media and getting people to, because you've got a wonderful, really following in business. And I'm just so impressed with everything you've done. I'm watching your videos. I got a sense of all the different ways you push buttons, it's different if it's a whole crowd of people or people you're not even sure what they're on versus the individual. And of course you have to tailor what you're saying to that audience. But yeah, I could really get a sense, you've done well in there. I can see why people are eager to follow you and learn from you and, build their lives around the kind of lessons. I mean, it all comes down to behavior change, new habits. For me, the most important change in my life, and I lost 50 pounds, by the way.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. Congrats.
My wife and I did it first, and we have the ultimate before picture. We were at Death Valley in front of the Death Valley sign.
Oh, wow.
And she's 70 pounds heavier and I'm 50 pounds
Wow,
heavier.
That's amazing.
Isn't that amazing, right? And my after picture is with Mehmet Oz on the Oz show.
Wow.
And hers is, golfing. She just hit a birdie.
I love that. That's incredible.
Great? Yeah, no, and that's part of what led me into, working with the NFL alumni in this program. And, I think what people need to hear is the kind of things that people encounter. But for me, learning how to hydrate was the single most important behavioral change in my life. And and I even learned when you binge eat, the most important thing you do is hydrate.
Yep.
Because it'll keep it from going into your fat. Because you've got this science basis, we can kind of take it up a notch today. So the the thermogenic effect of foods, was again. By the way, my majors were psychology and exercise physiology, right? So okay. I'm intrigued by this stuff, right? So what people don't know is it takes 20 to 30% of the energy in protein to be able to digest that food, whereas carbohydrates is about 10%, and fat is 1 to 3%.
Yep.
Which is like, oh, that's why I can breathe it and it goes into my fat. Because people don't realize. So when you do overeat, what I do is I hydrate a lot, and it helps keep it from converting to fat.
Yes. The other thing about hydrating is it will just keep you full. It's like a really nice, it's a nice way just to fill up your stomach, right? Yeah. It's if at the very least, one thing that I always say is people struggle oftentimes. They say, how do I stop boredom eating or boredom snacking? Or how do I know the difference if I'm hungry or not? It's a funny question nowadays, which is, it's like 100 years ago, no one would be like, am I hungry or not? Like if it's there, like what a world we live in now where it's like, but now when there's a plethora of food, which is a blessing, it's like, okay, well, am I hungry or am I not hungry? I have a very simple test. I call it the apple test, and I'll give a clarification in a second, but very simple. Ask are you hungry enough to eat an apple? If there was an apple in front of you, would you eat it or not? And if the answer is no, you're not hungry enough to eat an apple, well, then you're not hungry. You're just bored. So it's very simple. And then people are always like, well, what if I don't like apples? Then pick a different fruit that you actually do like. It could be cantaloupe. It could be kiwi. I don't care. If you're not hungry enough to eat a piece of fruit, then you're not really hungry. And so it's a very simple test. And then for me, one of the ways that we always keep apples in the house, mainly because I like apples, but it works with any fruit. If I'm feeling a little snacky, I'll have the fruit first. And if after the fruit, I still want the snack, great, I'll go for it. But usually, once I've had the fruit, I would say probably seven out of 10 times. Once I have the fruit, I'm done. I don't want any more. 3 out of 10 times, I'll still have a little snack, which is better than 10 out of 10 times going straight for the snack. And so that's where number one, you're getting in a better habit and establishing better behavior. And number two is you're removing this all or nothing mindset, because a lot of people think they can never have the snack. It's not about never having it. It's about, I would rather listen, 70% of the time I'm having the fruit and I'm calling it. 30% of the time I'll have the fruit and a little bit of the snack and I'm good. It's not a do or die situation, which I've found to be very helpful.
You know, ultra processed foods are the most difficult thing right now to avoid.
Yes.
Because they are literally everywhere.
Yes.
And sadly, they're addictive.
Yep.
You know, remember, you're too young, but you used to have a commercial with Lay's, but you can't eat just one.
Oh, yeah.
And they let the cat out of the bag because they actually had said, we're going to make you an addict for this ultra processed food. And they gave you carbs and fats. And bango, right? Tastes so good. A lot of salt.
Salt, yeah.
Bango. And then like you're drinking because you got this one or the other going in there. Yeah, which is, you know, I think it's really important for people to understand. The great thing about an apple, it's got a lot of fiber. It is, you know, and, you know, strawberries
and
raspberries, right? It's got a lot of water. So it's all about making smart choices about the food you eat, because, you know, it's in the train to maintain mode. How do you do that? You know, that's the key. It isn't just losing weight. There are 150 ways to lose weight.
Correct.
How do I live the rest of my life at that weight?
Exactly.
Because and again, those are things you have to learn, and those are behaviors that you have to mold and change and grow based on. And I love the Apple model because I hadn't heard that before, but it's a great, you know, it's great. If you can't eat an apple, you just your mouth is hungry. My roommate in college used to say, "My mouth is hungry."
Exactly.
And it's just he wants a snack for no other reason.
That's what it is. Yeah. It's you know, the thing with processed foods, there's a lot of things we could there are entire books we could write about it, but number one thing people don't understand is companies spend, and when I say this is not an exaggeration, hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars scientifically engineering these foods to make them hyper palatable, in which like they literally spend millions and millions and millions of dollars trying to figure out what is the most tasty, the most difficult to put down. They pay people to come in and run focus groups and research to figure out, all right, well, what are they going to eat the most of? What are they going to eat even past the point of fullness? And even equally as crazy, they change it based on geographic location. So they know that people in southern United States will respond to foods differently than those who are eating it in London. And so like they literally, if you travel the world, you'll see there's different foods and flavors. Like Coke is different in Mexico than it is in the United States. Chips are different. Flavor profiles are different. You go to McDonald's in a different country, they have different items on the menu, and it's because flavor profiles are different based on where you live. So they spend hundreds of millions of dollars specifically to make it more addicting. That's number one. Number two is there's a real double whammy problem here. It's like I said, it's hyper palatable, and you had mentioned the fat, salt, carb combo. It also works with fat, fat, salt, carb, and it also works with fat, sugar, carb. So like ice cream, for example. So it were sweet stuff and salty stuff. Those two make it very difficult, which, by the way, peanut M&Ms, you get both. Right? You get the sweet and the salty, or like chocolate covered pretzels, sweet and salty. It's designed to get you to eat more and more and more. Now, so that's the first problem, is the hyper palatable, but it's also hypo satiating, which means that when people hear about empty calories, that's what it's talking about. It's like you get a lot of calories and you don't get full from it. Right. And that's a huge problem, which is one of the reasons I like the apple test, because if you eat an apple, you're going to get pretty full, or at least reduce the urge to binge for about 80 calories.
Right.
That way you'll fill up more with the fiber and with the water content. And then even if you have the snack, you will inherently reduce how much you'll eat because you've already filled up a little bit. So it's a real struggle, and I very much understand it.
Well, I think you couple that with hydration. To your point, if you add a cup of water before you eat the apple, then you've really kind of triple whammied it.
Yes.
And
exactly.
it's not like, because, a lot of times when you're thirsty, you think you're hungry and you're just thirsty.
Yes.
So that's kind of the first layer. And then to your point, I love the apple. And then wait a minute, I hit it with both those. I don't really need that other stuff, a big chunk of the time. Meanwhile, you got to have your ice cream once in a while. I love that stuff. It's got nothing good in it.
Exactly. Yeah.
What I've learned to do is I've got 0 sugar yogurts.
Yep.
And that can put me off having to have ice cream or something sugary.
Yeah.
If I have one of those.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Even something like a Diet Coke, for example, like the research on that is overwhelmingly clear that it can help reduce sugar cravings for 0 calories, 0 sugar, which is it's absolutely wonderful. And I know there's a lot of hate against artificial sweeteners, but to date, there's no research in humans showing they're dangerous. All the research is actually on mice, and the amount of artificial sweeteners they give them would be the equivalent of about 15 cans of diet soda per day. So unless you're drinking 15 cans of Diet Coke a day and also you're a mouse, which have very different metabolic processes than us, then you're probably good. So having like 1 can to help reduce a sweet craving is actually very beneficial.
You're going to die from something. Nobody gets out alive.
Exactly. Yeah.
Pick your poison.
Which, by the way, I always laugh when the people are like shit talking aspartame or getting really mad. It's like, meanwhile, they're drinking whiskey or wine or some form of alcohol. I'm like, alcohol is a legitimate point, which, by the way, I love drinking. Like, I drink with my wife. It's fine. But it's ironic that they're calling aspartame poison while they're drinking an actual carcinogen.
Yeah.
That, like, alcohol is among the worst things you can put in your body.
It's also starves oxygen in the brain, all those little details, right? Yeah, it's funny. I drank since about 2 years ago. And then
wow, congrats.
In my health journey, anyway, for me, it was like an awakening. It wasn't, I didn't hear any voices or anything, but, it was like, it's a bait and switch. Yes. It's a bait and switch. Take a drink. You'll calm down. Take a drink. You'll be happy. Take a drink. You'll make friends. Take a drink. You'll get laid. Take a drink. Yep. Whatever it is, alcohol make it better. It's like, wait a minute.
This isn't right.
You look at the composition, it's just sugar.
Yep.
I mean, what's the average glass of wine? It's like 10 or 15 things of sugar in terms of a sugar compound. It's a lot. And, what you start looking at it going, wait a minute. Oh, and that puts calories into your diet.
Yes. Yeah. And, there's a lot of calories. Especially
you don't factor that in. All of a sudden you put 1,000 calories in there that you didn't know you had.
Yep. Yeah. There's interesting research done around alcohol and food consumption. There are 2 groups, and the college students loved this because one group got to drink. One group did, like, that game beer pong.
Sure.
So one group had beer and the other group had water in their cups. And so one group was drinking the beer and the other group was drinking the water. The group drinking the beer had way more fun. They also ate way more calories. And what they found is not only do you lose your inhibition or get reduced inhibition, you also, your ability to get the sensation of fullness diminishes radically. Whereas, as you and I know, when we're drinking water, you get more full.
Oh, yeah.
So this group that was only drinking water, they were stuffed. They ate next to no calories because they were so full from drinking all the water. But the group that was playing beer pong with beer, they could eat a lot because even though they were drinking the fluids, they were not feeling as full. It was very interesting. They had the calories from the beer and the calories from the food. It was very interesting.
Double down.
Yes, exactly.
Funny. Yeah, well, I remember those days. Yeah, no, that's good. Well, listen, this is great. In terms of like your general kind of way you go about taking on a new client, walk me through that. And because I know you have two tracks. You got the group track and you got the personal training track, which is kind of unusual. It's great.
Yeah. So candidly, I am not accepting one-on-one clients right now. I have a 1.5-year-old daughter. God willing, I have another daughter on the way in August.
There you
I got a
go.
puppy, and I've stopped taking on one-on-one clients for the time being, just because it's a little bit too much. So I'm only doing into the group, which I call my inner circle. It's a membership, and it's number one, it's way more affordable, but it has literally everything someone could need. Literally everything. It has workout programs, whether you can only walk, like that's your starting point. Amazing. We have just that. We have walking programs, strength training programs for body weight, just if you only have access to dumbbells. We also have full comprehensive gym-based programs. So everything from an exercise perspective is taken care of. As soon as you're in, we calculate your calories, your protein, your fiber for you, so you have that right on your home screen. We've got recipes that are in there. We've got literally like a massive group community with people, an encouraging group community. And so I would just go to sfinnercircle.com. Again, sfinnercircle.com. You can join right there. We've got mobility programs. We've got accountability counters, a place where you can track your weight. We've got a nutrition tracker. You can track your calories with a barcode scanner. It's literally an all-in-one, everything you need. It's my life's work. I've dedicated everything to it. It's been a blessing because there are people all over the world, from many countries all over the world. And it's how I can meet and help so many people. And it's also how I support my family, my wife, my kids. So it's been an amazing blessing in my life. And if anyone joins it, then I would love to have you. And if not, I hope you get my free information, because I give away everything for free anyway.
How long does a person usually sign up for?
So the minimum amount you can sign up for is 3 months. So it's either a quarterly or annually option. Obviously, the annual, you get a little bit of a better deal. It's the minimum possible is 3 months, but I would say the average is between like 10 to 15 months is where the average. I started it in 2015. So I have some people who have been in the group since 2015.
Amazing.
Who have joined it, and then they are only in it for a quarter, but average is between like 10 to 15 months.
Wow. Well, that's where I was going. It takes about a year to really change your certain behaviors. You don't really make them habits if you give up too quick.
Correct.
And that's a great number. Actually, that's a really good number. 10 to 15.
I used to, early on in 2015, 2016, I used to offer a monthly membership, and people still ask me for it, but I stopped doing that because I realized when people sign up for something for 1 month, they have a feeling that they're supposed to make insane amounts of progress in 1 month. So then by the time week 2 rolls around and they're not where they feel like they should be, then they end up quitting, which is why I made it a quarterly option, just because they're in it for at least 3 months. And by the end of the second month, they've really stuck with it. They've made some really good progress by the end of the second month. And so then that's when they'll extend, offering it the annual option. But I completely agree. It takes a year to really be like, wow, I've made some big changes in my life.
So the typical person, are they setting up a weight goal, and are they using a particular method?
Yep. So I had my app developer design the app, but using my calculation, they come in, they establish their goal, whether if it's weight loss or if it's weight maintenance or if it's weight gain, depending on the person. So if you're doing weight loss, you just tap weight loss. You say your current weight and what your goal weight is. Give us more information, and then we tell you, all right, cool. Here's your caloric range. Here's your protein range, and here is your fiber range. And then you can also set it up like if you want to either eat the same number of calories every day, or if you, like many people, they tend to eat more calories on the weekend, fewer calories during the week just because of work, but you can structure it however you want. So if you want to do a calorie cycling approach, you just hit a button and boom, Monday through Thursday, you have this number of calories. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you have this many calories, and your net total at the end of the week is still in an appropriate amount for you to lose weight sustainably. So everything is customized to you. The only thing that's not customized is the workouts, which are for the entire group. But there's a massive exercise database that I've spent years and years and years filming with many hundreds, close to 1,000 exercise videos. And if there's an exercise in the program that you can't do in the app, you just hit a button, swap it out for another exercise. And those it's not random exercises. So when you hit swap, I went through one by one and chose all appropriate exercise substitutions for that exercise. So you know when you're picking it, you're not just randomly picking a different exercise. You're picking an exercise that also works those muscle groups. And so, yeah, I've spent almost 10 years now making this, and it's still not where I want it to be. We still have a lot of improvements, but it's my life's work.
That's great. You know, one of our key advisors, Dr. Holly Lofton, trained me on something that wasn't, you know, people plateau a lot of times when they're weight loss. I did. And what she explained is that she has people start at about 150 minutes a week of some moderate exercise, but then you step it up. So as you're losing weight, you're stepping up your activity level because you can then, because you have less weight, you're burning less weight.
Correct.
You know, your base metabolic rate is lowers.
Exactly.
You got to be able to address it. So the way it is of course, you increase your activity level.
Correct.
You know, is that a similar approach do you take, or you have a spin on that?
So it's a very similar approach. The main thing is we need to distinguish between a normal plateau and I would say a sustained plateau. And maybe a better phrase would be an acute plateau versus a chronic plateau would probably be a better way to put it. Acute plateaus are normal. And just because you have an acute plateau for a week or 2 weeks, even 3 or 4 weeks, doesn't mean you need to change anything. It's normal for your weight to not go down every single week, even every couple of weeks. The way that I frame it is if you lost 1 pound a week every single week, that's 52 pounds in a year. In 2 years, that's 104 pounds. In 3 years, like it just goes on and on and on. Not everyone has that much weight to lose. But if the scale, it's not logical. Like some days you might not eat very much and the scale could spike up the next day for any number of reasons. So some people are too quick to say this is a plateau and I need to make a change. So I completely agree with the woman you're speaking about. We're just a little bit slower to initiate that change because if you make too many changes too quickly, it will often become unsustainable and you'll reach a point of activity that is very difficult to continue to do. So I've noticed through tracking literally thousands and thousands of people's weight charts, most people don't need to make a change until they've experienced at least like 5 to 10 acute plateaus. And that's when they have their first chronic plateau. And that's when we can say, okay, now we can either adjust your caloric intake or adjust your activity level based on you've lost this much weight. Now we need to make a change. But most people, they get to their first or second or third plateau and they're like, I need to reduce my calories more, or I need to do more running, or I need to do more. It's like, no, just keep going. Don't quit. Just keep doing everything the same. I promise it will move. And then they do that for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, boom, their weight drops a couple pounds and they believe in the process. But most people are too quick to make that change.
Interesting. Yeah, that's, yeah. The more people understand this is really behavioral change, the better.
Correct.
Because then they're realizing, oh, this isn't, you know, the other thing we're looking at a lot is body composition.
Yep.
Because now with these new drugs, and I'd love for you to go into that a bit. And I'm sure you're coaching some people on drugs.
Yes, a lot.
So please take it away.
So listen, as I'm sure you could probably tell, I'm not a very black and white person. There's a lot of nuance to everything. There are some people who these drugs make sense for, and they can actually help improve their health and their quality of life. There are other people who these drugs are an absolutely horrible idea for, and they're becoming more of a fad and something to do because you want to lose a few pounds, and it's not a good idea. The people who it makes the most sense for are the people with chronically high levels of body fat, to the point where, and especially where it's negatively affecting not only their physical health, but their mental health, their emotional health. And one of the major issues with chronic high levels of adiposity, of body fat, is the toll it takes on your joints. And so if I can get someone to lose weight so that they can start walking and moving more, and just initially, amazing. That's what I need to make happen, because just little bits of walking make a huge difference from a physiological level. So there are some uses in which it makes total sense and others in which it doesn't. I would say it's what's better than these drugs is these drugs plus actual lifestyle habit changes. If you're just taking the drugs and you're not changing your actual lifestyle, it's a big problem. If you're just taking the drugs and you're not strength training and getting enough protein, it's a big problem. If you're just taking the drugs and relying on them to do all the work for you, it is a big, big, big problem. Nothing is going to be better than also incorporating lifestyle changes. And it's a real important question that you have to ask yourself: do you want to stay on them forever? And the only person who can answer that is you. It's a very individual question that to speak with you and your doctor. And frankly, I would encourage you to get multiple opinions from multiple doctors, not just one. There are many reasons why, but they take me off of it, just so you know. I forget their website name, but if you Google it, there's a website where you can go and search your doctor or any doctor and see how much money they've taken from pharma. And if they're making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year off of pharma, it might be worthwhile saying, like, do I want to be getting my advice from this doctor, or should I go to someone else, to another doctor that's making either no money or very little money from pharma? It's worthwhile. But all this information is freely available to the public, which I think is important for you to know. And I think a good doctor will tell you about it. But anyway, the nuanced answer is, for some people, it's the right decision. And for some people, it's not. And the only one who can really make that decision is you and your doctor.
Well, I think you're right. I think different doctors have different points of view and frankly, different levels of training.
Yes.
And just because they have an MD behind their name or DO doesn't mean they know anything about any of this stuff.
Correct. It's exactly right.
And so I don't, all I would add is it isn't just doctors you need to speak to.
Yes.
There are other people that you can get. And again, it's not like we have any kind of deficit in our bodies for these things, right? It is instead we're going to die from something. And what I would say is people who have morbid obesity or chronic obesity, is something like a GLP-1 is a godsend. Because their risk for diabetes, their risk for heart disease, their risk for cancer, or neuropathy, and a whole slew of other things are huge. So, okay, you've got risks here, but a risk and reward, it's a lot of risk over here.
Yes.
So, I don't know if I'm right about it, but that seems to my point of view is that people, when they do that kind of, but a casual person wants to lose 10 pounds, that's not what they're developed for.
No,
and
it's not.
To your point, even if you go on them, if you don't change your behavior, and that's why a coach is so valuable.
Yes.
That's why training is so valuable, because then you can establish new habits. Then if you want to taper off, you can do that. And, I've talked to some doctors and they say, well, listen, I have patients who do that, but then when they hit their goals, they extend the period of time between doses.
Yep.
Where they have, at a minimal dose. And that, again, if that's what keeps you on your game, then that's the right way to do it.
Correct.
And so to your point, you need to shop your doctor, those who've had a lot of experience with it, those who, want to be involved with you, because that's the other part. Somebody puts you on a medication of that type, they've really got to be invested in you. It isn't a casual thing.
Correct.
Because there are, things you need to know, and there'll be changes in your body you need to be aware of. And, and if they're into it, it'd be a huge help. Dr. Lofton is a doll, and she's there actually at NYU. She's there to keep people, if at all possible, from not needing surgery. So her whole role is to treat patients, but prior to any kind of surgical intervention, and see if she can get them where they need to be.
I love that.
And
That's
she
super
herself
important.
had childhood obesity, and yeah, so she comes from a genuine place.
I love that. She
Well,
sounds
listen,
amazing.
Jordan, this has been terrific.
Listen, obesity is a medical condition, not a character flaw. I hope that you found this podcast helpful. Make sure you go to tackleobesity.com. And the most important thing, again, is to remember that no matter what, you can make a change. You can do this. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be quick. But as long as you stick with it and you don't quit, you'll be able to achieve the results you want.
Terrific. Well, listen, I appreciate your time today. It's, anyway, I love the conversation. I really enjoyed it, and would love to have another opportunity to speak with you. We're building a team of influencers within our show that we record a bunch of segments and then just recycle them. Would love to have you consider doing that. At each time you'd be really sharing your own site, because we believe in coaching and we don't do it.
Yep. Yep.
And, other than for ourselves, each other, but that's not really our role. Our role is to support coaches. So give that some consideration, because, you're an inspiring guy.
I appreciate that, Russ. Thank you.
You got the real deal, and I really appreciate you. And thank you for tonight. And we'll circle back.
Thank you, Russ. I appreciate you.
Thanks,
have a wonderful night. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
You've been listening to Wellness Jocks radio and podcast show. Thanks for making your health the priority. We're here to support you every step of the way on your wellness journey. Take care, grow strong. Meet you next time with Russ and our guests here on the Wellness Jocks radio and podcast show. Keep pushing forward. You've got this.